Okay, good evening, everyone. First of all, before starting the session, I would like to thank you all for joining us, and I'm hoping that everyone is safe and taking care of themselves. Before starting the session on UX and product engineering, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Varsha Jaiswal from JDG Jalandhar and the Women Technical Lead of the chapter. So here today we are having Suraj Kumar with us. He is the software developer from vComply and the ex-DSC lead too. He has been the organizer of GDG Jalandhar chapter and a tech speaker by passion. So rather than wasting time on introducing us, let's start the session today and hope that everyone will get the best out of this and will enjoy the session today. So over to you, Suraj. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Varsa. So, hello everyone. My name is Suraj. As Varsa introduced me, and you already know, I am a software development engineer at vComply Inc. And apart from this, today's session is not a technical session. It is like a more than technical session. So, before moving ahead, uh, uh, if you want to know more about me, you can just visit surajkumar.info and you can connect me on social media as well as professional networks like LinkedIn. So now let's just have a higher level overview of today's webinar, right? So this webinar is all about product engineering and UX. So what is product engineering and UX? It sounds too complex sometimes for some people. So in simple terms, UX is like how your product feels to the user and what experiences it's provide. And generally, it's a misconception about UX is that UX is only about uh, visuals, animation, and design and all. UX is more than that. So in this session, we will talk about UX, how to make a better UX, and after that, we will move to product engineering, where we will talk about how to think and how to implement a good product. Basically, in terms of product, we are focusing on technology based product like mobile app or web apps, although it can be of various form, but especially in this talk our focus is this. So let's start without taking more time. So this is the webinar outcome for today. The first thing we will talk why UX actually matters, why it is important. The second thing is what need to be considered in UX apart from color design or animation kind of things. The third thing we will talk about understanding the user behavior and needs, especially when you are designing a product. This is very important. Then we will talk about product planning and management from ground zero by leveraging tools like inclusive design and design thinking kind of things. And after that, we have a really interesting session called Engineering Management Strategies for Most Fruitful Result in Less Time, Cost, and Efforts. So in this section, we will generally talk about how to be more fruitful in terms of product development and engineering side. And after we will talk about A/B testing and at last we will have a bonus session on migration strategy from older technology stack to newer technology stack. It is like if you have already a product and it is already live in market, but with evolution of technology and requirements, you need to move your product from older technology stack to newer technology stack. At that time, you can face a lot of issues. So in this session, we will talk about how companies like Hotstar tackle this issue. So let's start. So first thing, why UX matter? So according to this infographics, 60% of users have poor. Uh, 68% of users leave the website just due to poor UX. Yeah, it's all right if your website or your product or your app is it not giving appropriate information or appropriate thing that is needed by the user. It is overloaded or underloaded with unnecessary features. Then user may leave the website. The second thing is 85% of UX problems can be solved by testing with 5 users only. And when I am talking about 5 users, I am not only talking about the developer who developed the website or the product manager who is responsible for doing all this. I am talking about any random user who is who is just using that. For example, we are using Zomato, Swiggy as a random user. So whenever you develop a product, give it to some random user and just inform that this product is for doing this things. These are the use of this product, and that user will almost find all the defects of your UX. Generally 85% cases, um, 5 users are enough for this thing. After that, 62% of your future user base rely on their past experience. Yeah, it's all right, because if you talk about Amazon, so if your experience is good on Amazon for first time, then you will come second time, and for third time, fourth time. Same happen with every product. In terms of, if we talk about Swiggy, Zomato, Uber, Ola, same pattern is followed everywhere. So that's why UX is really important for any application to grow and scale. So straightforward, how to build UX first. Whenever, suppose many of you guys are future startup founders, CEOs or CTOs, I wish. Then what happens is, this is the basic 5 points that you need to mind whenever you design any UX. First, suppose I got an idea to build an app, right? Then after getting idea, we have to fix the goal that this app is doing is for this. Like suppose Zomato. So Zomato's idea is to deliver food and connect restaurants. In similar fashion, while designing a product, we have to make a mental design, or you can say mental visual design. It's a rough visual idea, give rough visual idea about your product. That's it. Apart, and after that, the point 2 comes information architecture. uh, every application, every product relies on some information. For example, we are talking about Zomato. Then Zomato has information about restaurants, foods, and many more things. Then of course Zomato has done some market research, that what their competitors are doing, what are the customer requirements, and this kind of things. And after collecting all this information in 2 and 3, what they have done, they have made a rough idea on rough UI layout, you can say, or rough UX flow. That's called interaction design. Then they tested the usability. Is that UX flow is usable to the user, or user it for performing one action it takes 10 button to be clicked, and this process goes on, right? So in here it is in more detail, like a visual design. We are, as we already talked, it is like using higher level layouts for designing the product. The second thing is information architecture. It is like suppose in Zomato, there are a cluster of restaurant, cluster of food categories. So they architected the information, labeled it, and clustered them in small chunks, so that they can keep a proper balance between the user requirement and the other information they have. And after doing this, market research is really important, because market is changing every day, and this is the most important part. You should perform survey, take feedback from users, and according to that, you should always keep iterating your ideas and make sure to ensure the consistency in your product. And after that, after every iteration, make sure to test the usability of your product at any cost. That is user able to use your website or any other product. It's an app, or it is like if your website is too heavy, then the person with slow network connection can't access it properly, or your website is compatible with Chrome but not with Mozilla Firefox or Edge, then it's also an issue. So it is like it's a market research defect, you can say, that you, when you went to market, you haven't researched properly about the user needs and their behavior. So this is basics of building any UX. So this is some stats where investing in UX actually return. It is if you can see this infographics, it says every $1 invested return up to $100. Yeah, it's not $100, it may be more than this. The, Here are some few example of IBM, Amazon, and McAfee. So the example of Amazon is quite interesting. Like whenever you go to any shopping website, it may not be Amazon, it may be Flipkart, Shopclose, Snapdeal, anyone. So what happens is you choose your product, you add to your cart, and at last stage they ask for registration. And most users don't want to or to register because it's a long form and user don't want to register at that time. So what Amazon has done, they have done registration less ordering, means they removed compulsory registration. And what the result is, they earned $15 million extra in only first month, and their purchase increased by 45%. So this is the thing that, yeah, UX really matters. So moving ahead, whenever we design any product or the UX of any product, we can say these things need to be kept in our mind, that if you are developing a product, it should be made for female as well as male. It is not like it is male centric or female centric. Some product may be like that, but if your product is like Ola, Uber, with where gender discrimination not coming to action, then make sure to include gender inclusiveness there, right? And developed versus developing, it is like suppose Uber, Ola, I am talking a lot about these companies because they are multinational and they are operating in many companies. So USA is a developed country, India is a developing country. So you have to keep in mind that while you are developing the product, you should keep this thing in mind that our if the product is working in USA, it doesn't means it will also work in India because the conditions are different. Same for socio-economic and other factors. It is like age. Uh, there may be things like the younger generation is able to use your product, but older generation is not able to do that. So make sure to have proper age compatibility with the product. And same goes with culture and disability. Like in even in India, there are different culture, different diversity, different languages. So to cover most of the population, make sure to include gender inclusiveness there. And last thing comes is disability. So actually, what disability says, suppose I am blind or I have some other disability. So if you heard about web accessibility, what accessibility says that web should be accessible to everyone. In many websites, you have seen there is an option of screen reader. So that is just for this accessibility feature only. So if someone is disabled, he is not able to see things, he or she can use that screen reader kind of things. Even if you look at the keyboard of your laptop or old or feature phones we used to have in older times, on number 5 in mobile phone there are some top notch on the number 5 to identify which key is this for disabled person. So that is like disability inclusiveness in our app. So these are 7 things that make sure to keep in your app or product whenever you develop any product. So moving ahead, so this is a really good example of gender inclusiveness where it matters. So the thing is that airbags used to be in our cars and everywhere, where mostly in cars, flight, and anywhere. So what is happening in that the death rate of females are more as compared to males. And after a long research, they come to know about that the airbags we are testing is only tested on female dummies, not on only tested on male dummies, not on female. That's why this is happening. So now you can understand the importance of inclusiveness in any product. And if you have any question, then at the end of this session, we are going to have a Q&A session. So feel free to write your question in the comments. So now, as I already said, UX is not only about design, animation, and color. It is beyond that. So few months back, I have written an article. So it is like, so let's talk about this. The first principle of developing a good UI. I am talking about UI now only. It is like always think like a end user. Like you are not the developer of that product. You are the user of that product, right? So always think like a user. Always try to make self-explanatory UI. Means your UI should be this much simple and straightforward that it doesn't confuses your user. And the third thing is minimize the number of action done to completing a task, right? If in Swiggy you have to done 10 click to order a food, surely you will not do that. And this is the point number 4 is quite interesting. Like if you look at this image, it says cancel download, and the question and the text is, do you want to cancel this download?
Hi Suraj, may you just check your blog screen is not visible.
Oh, sorry. Now it's visible.
Yeah,
I
it's
hope.
visible now. Thank you.
Right. So I was talking about this 4 points, and am extremely sorry if my blog is not visible. So it is like always think like end user, and your UI should be self-explanatory. I was talking about point number 4. That's really interesting. So if you look at this text, whenever someone clicks on cancel download, it is like, do you want to cancel this download? And the button is saying cancel, okay. So it is quite confusing because I want to cancel this download and it is asking if I click okay, then it will cancel. But cancel and cancel, they are conflicting each other. So we need to avoid this kind of confusion in our app. The fifth thing is uh, optimize your application for all screen sizes. It is like um, maybe while designing the UI, you have tested that application on laptop screen, but you haven't tested on tablets and mobile. So make sure to test everywhere and try to keep the UX and interaction design similar everywhere. And the sixth point is quite interesting as well, because when we develop any application, the developers are using high-end devices with a good hardware, but they don't consider that the end user may not have that much capable device. They may have a device with low hardware configuration. So keep that hardware configuration in mind whenever you develop a product. The seventh thing is keep network in mind. Of course, India has already have good network connectivity as in most of the cities, but of course, the network problems can happen anywhere. So whenever the network is fast, your application is running smoothly. But when there is network fluctuation or the network is slow, your application is not working. Then it is giving a bad user experience. Similarly, same goes for the user manual and help guide. So if you now in modern time, you have seen a chatbot kind of thing in many applications. If you look at Swiggy, Zomato, anywhere. So how it helped them to reduce the support manpower required. Of course, instead they already have manual and help guide. Although they have some smarter chatbot using machine learning kind of things, that reduce their workforce, and it is giving better UX because the user don't need to wait in line And yeah, the user don't have to wait in line, and they get support instantly. Right. So this is about why UX is more beyond this hard design and animation and colors. Now, now we will go to some see some another example. Like, or you already have uh, heard about Swiggy Pop. We are all are habitual of ordering foods from Swiggy, Zomato, and all. But the story of Swiggy Pop is quite interesting. The thing is that let's have a look at this article. Oh, sorry. This is really an interesting article. So whenever you are developing any product, try to visit this website of already running product that are already succeeded in market. So if you go to Swiggy's engineering blog, you can see there are different segments in top. It's engineering, mobile, web, data science, and product. So it is like, yeah, you can rely on them and you can use their experience to design their own product. So if you look at this article, it already says different phase of designing any product, and it is really well explained because Swiggy Pop is just designed from idea to product to release in just 100 days, and this is a great example. So first understand the problem. So what the problem is, generally what happens is we are Swiggy, Zomato, and this kind of apps that generally mostly used by bachelors or singles who generally used to order food from here. But what happens is whenever they come to that app, they have to go through long list of restaurants, and then what happens is after doing a lot of efforts, either they don't order or they order something that is not relevant to it. Is like they need person food for one person, but they are getting food for 2 person. So what Swiggy guys thought, why not give option better option to these users. You can go through this blog, it's really interesting. I will share the slide with Varsha, and she will share it with you all, and you can even find this slide in the description of this video as well. So let's understand what Swiggy Pop is doing. So uh, to discover, first problem is discovery of single serve meal, because as a bachelor or single, uh, we only want that much of food that can be taken by or consumed by one person. So Swiggy Pop is designed in such a way that it provides better discovery of more and more concise menu. The second is it provided more affordable meal, because most of the Swiggy Pop items are ranging between 50 to 150 rupees, so it is no costly at all. And it is also giving variety in options. It is not like it is giving one to, at least it is giving 20-30 options to everyone. And the experience of ordering is quite easy. It is not like you have to go through various steps. It is straight simple, choose the item you want to order and just check out, that's it. And no delivery fee, that is the best thing. So how it impacted their business and in various ways. So if we go down. Okay, no, I will explain here only. So what happened? So it increased the ordering of restaurants. It decreased the ordering time because there are only few items from a restaurant is chosen to deliver. So that restaurant can keep that food prepare every time, and it is bounded to a radius of 3 or 4 kilometers. only to a restaurant, so that delivery executives can earn more. So overall it is solving very much problem that is currently not solved by its competitors. And moving ahead, it this article already shows how they went from day 0 to day 100 and launched the product and what problems they faced. And if you are planning to develop any product or you want to have your own startup, make sure to go through uh, this blogs of startups that are already established in market. So you can see that checkout experience that I was talking. You can see a pop button on the Swiggy's app. You just go to that. You get big images of some few items, especially crafted for you, and you can directly check out. In 3 steps, you are done. So this is, you can go ahead and read this whole article. It's a quite big article, and you will learn a lot from product design to engineering, execution and engineering. Now moving back to the slides. And now, based on all these experiences, I have written some blogs too, that it is basically based on engineering management practices that I found in my organization as some of my friends' organization. So this is all about that. So it says building a product is not a piece of cake. Yeah, we already know that, from food ordering apps to banking app. Uh, those apps are not made in one day. They took lot of effort to execute this and make them live. Now let's see what things are important whenever you develop a product. So let's start from the step 0 of product development. Whenever you are planning to make any product, make sure to have proper goal, and you should know what you want to achieve and what impacts it make on the market, or the market you are targeting. Second thing is analyze all the customer need and discuss it with engineering team. Most of organization don't do that, but yeah, it's important because in long run it decreases the development time as well as maintenance time and increases the scalability of your product. So, and one more thing is, if your whole engineering team or product team is clear about the idea that what they have to execute, they can be self responsible and they can take self decisions. So these two advantages that on product side you have to take, like, yeah. uh, and then directly comes to the engineering part, because it's about all about engineering, product engineering. So the first step is decide the higher level architecture of your product. It is most important thing, like how the front end will work, how the back end will work, and how that application will deploy DevOps and all. The second thing is technology selection. Make sure to have proper research, and as per your requirement, choose the technology. That is the technology satisfying your needs. If yes, no, choose alternative and do research. Iterate through this process. Now the third thing is that after you have chosen the technology, it is like analyze your resource. Like if you have 15 engineers, they all are trained on PHP, but the new technology stack that you have chosen is based on Angular and Node. So it is really important to make sure that your workforce or resources is enough skilled to tackle this engineering issue or to make this product. So it is always a good practice to skill your human resource first, and don't just rely blindly on Stack Overflow for everything, because at starting you will feel like you will do that, but as the application grows and the complexity increases, you will start facing these issues. Now the thing is that segment level architecture. In any application, there are different segments like front end, back end, deployment, DevOps, and all. So after deciding the higher level architecture, decide the micro level architecture too. So you should define the architecture of front end, back end, DevOps separately with your team, and do give opportunity to your two team members to innovate and have a research on pros and cons of everything or the architecture you have decided. And the point number 5 is most important. Application performance from day one. The day one when we start development, our app doesn't have too much thing. So you may not feel that, yeah, my app is slow or it's overloaded kind of thing, but make sure to audit your application from the day one. So in long term, whenever you need to scale your application or have to add some new feature, it will not take too much time, or it will impact the performance badly because you have measured the performance from the day one. Define a code standard. Yeah, this is really important, and most of the product based companies do that, like Amazon, Flipkart, and other companies do that. So what they do is, uh, they define a code standard for their whole coding team, that you have to follow this code standard. Like if you search on GitHub that Airbnb JavaScript code standard, then you will find a link on GitHub that provides a code standard of Airbnb. That's really good. So we have to define that code standard, that we have to declare a variable like this, and you have to use this pattern only. If you are declaring a CSS class, then use this pattern only. So this is really required because developers may change in between, and if it's quite confusing, it takes time to adopt by the new developer. So it is more important. The second thing is design pattern. Whenever we design any application, we follow some design patterns like solid or singleton kind of thing. I will not go in depth, but this is important to decide if you are planning to make any product. The seventh point is decide a success matrix. Yeah, it's really interesting and really important, because whenever we develop any product or develop any feature, we are not sure when we will say that that product is successful or that feature is successful. So it is really important to fix a success matrix. Like if this feature or this product is able to compete with this matrix or this point, then it is okay for market. The eighth point is set up proper test environment. Yeah, it's more important, because you are developing the product, that's right, you are coding the product, that's right, but there is always an exception, and we may miss that. So providing proper uh, test environment is important, right? And the I will answer all your question in the last, in the Q&A section. So just keep posting your comments, your question in the comments. We have a really good discussion at the last. The second thing is, suppose we have a test everything from minimum scale to maximum scale, right? So suppose we have a table of content in our application, or we are talking a lot about Swiggy, Zomato. So let's talk about the menu. So what we do is, in our menu, if suppose if there is 0 item, then how it will look, and if there are 1000 items, then how it will behave. Is there any performance lag or any other kind of performance or UX issues? So make sure to do this. The 10th point is decide the test deployment architecture. And because you have already done with development, so now after developing the app, it's now to make it public and available for the end user. So if you look at the previous videos of at GDG, we talked about lot of cloud platforms like Firebase and Google Cloud platforms like thing, and they are the new standard for now to have this deploying our application. Even applications like Swiggy and all are running on some clouds like Microsoft Azure or Google Cloud Platform, or maybe AWS. So this is all about engineering point of view, that yeah, this thing you have to consider. These are minimum things that you have to consider for making a successful product. If you are just blindly developing the application, then in future you are going to be stuck for sure. So till now we talked a lot about this all things. Now, suppose your application is already in older technology stack, or it is running on older technology, but as the time changing, the technology is evolving, and that older technology is not able to meet your requirements. So what strategies you should follow for your product that it doesn't affect your user base or customer base? So the first thing is, don't make extreme UX changes at once. It, your UI should not be changed at once. The user flow and the experience of doing any task should not be changed at once. Uh, so if in past your application is taking 5 clicks to do an action, then decrease it slightly, not from 5 to 2. It may confuse your present user base. It should be like 5 to 4, then 4 to 3, then it should be like this. With every version you release, test the user behavior. You can test this by using A/B testing features, or you can use Firebase remote config kind of thing and other software to execute this process. Whenever the thing is that whenever you change the technology stack, suppose your application is running on PHP and now you plan to move it to Node.js. So what strategy you should try to make this migration smoother? So the first thing is that don't try to implement new features. Make sure to migrate all the features that are already on older technology stack to the newer technology stack, and then week by week or release by release, you can say, add new features. So it will help you in improving the product as well, and keeping your current customer base with you. There is really a good example at Hotstar Engineering blog that talks about how they re-architected their app before IPL 2020. So if you go through this blog, before IPL 2018, what their Hotstar is running on a legacy technologies, like older technologies, you can say. So they decided to re-architect the app. So how they come through this challenge and how they tackle this challenge is that uh, their older backend is made on something else, and the newer backend is made on something else, and they don't want to affect the current customer base. So what they have done is they have developed a layer between that is called Rocky, and this is like logic and network. It handles all the logic, UI and network layer between newer technology backend and the older UI or older application, you can say. And they slightly started giving the updates. If you go to this strategy one, delivering app in patch instead of one big update, right? These apps are nearly 35 45 MBs, and if they start delivering updates like this, then it is really difficult for user to update. So you can, and if you look at this point, we set up A/B testing through Firebase remote config. So after every patch, they are testing that how user is behaving to this, and what things we need to change, so that they can have proper idea that how they can improve the things, and what is going wrong and what is going correct. The second thing is, always have a backup plan whenever you are migrating technology from, or releasing a new version, or with breaking changes. Then make sure to have a backup plan, because whenever something goes wrong, make sure, if you have seen many website, when they recently Facebook updated their new UI, but they have given option to revert back to older UI. So that's a backup plan kind of thing. So these are the backup plans we need to keep in our mind whenever we migrate from one technology stack to other technology. So I was talking about that architecture and design principle. So these are all technical stuff that we don't need to cover in this talk. Although if you request in future talks, we may cover this. Everything we can cover, from Android to web, anything. The performance, yeah, performance matrix is important. We already talked about that. So you can just go through this Hotstar engineering blog, Swiggy engineering blog. Even Walmart has a really good engineering blog that you can look over that. So now I am available for questions. So if you have questions, feel free to write in the comment box.
Uh, okay, Suraj. So I'll start reading questions for you, and so that you can answer that. So starting with Manish, Manish question: Where to start learning UI UX? Means, is there any material or which material you will suggest to where we can start learning that?
Yeah, that's really great. Good. This is the question that is in mind of every person who is planning to have career in UI UX field. The thing is that any course or any material can give you only the basics. All, although you have to innovate it themselves. Even Harvard and Stanford had some good courses which talk about design thinking and all in UX as well. So if you want to have the name of courses as well, surely we will list out in the below your comment in a few minutes or by tomorrow. So apart from this, if you are talking about best practices that you can follow, so don't just blindly follow the course. That course is saying this means it is right, because UX is evolving with time, UI is evolving with time, and the technology is overall technology is evolving with time. So you can't rely on one course, but for sure I will suggest you to make it learning habit, proper learning habit for that. That if some course is saying that yeah, you have to do this, you have to make UI like this, or you have to choose color like this, make sure to question yourself that why this color. If you learn this skill, then you are on proper track. And in terms of courses or learning resources, we will just comment, write it below your comments in few hours or by tomorrow. Thanks.
Manish, I hope that Suraj answered your question well. Next question is of Chandan: that which skills are needed to become a UI or UX designer?
Yeah, if you're talking about UI UX designer, uh, then you have to do what, the first thing you have to be, have a clear mindset, and you need to think like end user. That how, instead of a designer or developer, you should see your things like an end user, and try to get motivation from other apps or product that you are using first. That why this app has done this and what that impacted. And if you're talking about the skills required, then of course in terms of tooling, you need to have tools like Photoshop, Sketch, or Figma for sure. And in coding part, if you talk about as a UI designer, for web, it's HTML, CSS, and little bit of JavaScript is compulsory. In terms of mobile development and app development, the concept is almost same everywhere in terms of app and web, but some things are changed as per the platform you choose. So in shorter terms, you need to have proper mindset, and you need to have this skill sets that I mentioned. And surely based on your question, I am going to write a bigger blog and FAQ to give you a better answer than this. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, great. So Manish had another question: that is there any way to make apps live for free on Play Store? And Casey was also expecting an answer for that.
Yeah, the thing is that we have to understand why Play Store is charging one-time fee. If a person is able to publish an app for free, then they may spam, they may publish vulnerable apps, they may cause security issues and all. That's why, to make sure that um, their platform is protected from all this, they are charging you. But I think for now there is no way to publish in Play Store for free. But yeah, you can have try with, you can just mail the Google Play team support that you are students or entrepreneur and you are planning to publish this app for free. Can you grant me this? Then may they give you. Thanks.
Okay, so in short, they just charge to take care of the security things and authentication.
Yeah,
So
yeah. The thing is
Casey,
that the Varsha, just wait a minute. I can explain.
okay,
I want to explain a little bit more. The thing is that it is not only about security. If you know, if we provide everything in free, people will underestimate that and do whatever they want to do. It is the normal human mindset and psychology. That's why Google engineers and the product team has planned something like that. Even if you want to publish an app on Chrome store, they charge um, a minimum a fee of $5 only for lifetime. So why they are charging? Because only serious developer can publish on these platforms. Right. Thanks.
okay. So Casey wanted his application to make scalable and not face any future regressions or refactoring. So he just wanted to describe like if is there any good higher level architecture guide or any example to learn from. Suraj, are you there?
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. So
Oh,
if I talk on this topic, it will take nearly 2 and 3 hours to discuss on this. But in simple and short, if your questions are like will motivate me to write some more blogs and based on your question. So in simple terms, whenever you design an app, or then you I already told that you should select a technology that fulfill your requirement, right? So first step, fulfill your requirement, select technology. And for architecture wise, it is like, suppose you have chosen that I will use serverless computing for my backend kind of thing. And if you are aware of the fact that you can't upload a bigger file on serverless kind of thing, or you can't perform heavy operations on serverless, or because it will get timeout. So here you have chosen the wrong technology architecture, because you haven't done a proper research on the product or product architecture. So in terms of architecture, it is not only about the solid principle or singleton design pattern. They are design pattern, how your code and components are organized and features are organized. But in terms of architecture, it covers lot of things. In terms of any web application, it covers front end, back end, DevOps and all. So in every level, you have to define such a architecture that if you are using if you have to add a new feature, then it should not take too much time, or it should not create too much bug. So in simple words, if you want to have scalable architecture, first of all, uh, make application component based means don't make a big bunch of file or big bunch of code, because it will create issue when you want to add a new feature or you have to debug or do something else. So try to break your application in smaller chunks, like components. For every feature there should be a component. So whenever you have to add a feature, then you have clear cut idea that, yeah, I have to add this feature in this component, then I have to go to that component and its file only. And it also makes the size of code smaller, as well as really maintainable and reusable. So I hope this answered your question. If you have other question, then feel free to write in the comments. I will try to give a better explanation on this, either by a blog or in the comments.
okay.
Thanks.
Manish had one question that should we use Flutter for app development?
Yeah, see, again, if if we talk about options, we have tons of options available in the market, right? And it totally depends upon you that how what is the motive of your app, and what you want to build with do with that app. And is that CPU intensive application, or it is network intensive application, or something like that. So if you are making a game like PUBG or something else which is quite CPU intensive, then surely you will go for native. But as the Flutter evolved, the Flutter is coming up with really good improvements and support as well for various platforms. Now it also support web. So it's a new technology, and it is going to have a great future. So of course you can go with Flutter.
Okay, so now we have Rahul. He had a question that is it good to start Android or to start from any other app development language?
See, the thing is that it totally depends upon what you want to achieve. If you are planning to have a, if your goal is to have a job in any software company, then it's totally depend upon you that what you want. That if you are in good at Java, then you surely go for Android development. If you are good with Swift, then you should go for iOS development. So it is not like the state of everything is same, because if we talk about 2 years later, the Java developers are quite in demand for Android development, but suddenly this Flutter and the Android team moved to Kotlin. So it is evolving, so you have to keep yourself updated and evolving, and this is the best thing about technology industry. If you are not upgrading yourself, you are not going to exist in this market. And the one more phrase is there: the salary, your salary and the opportunity you get totally depends upon how much you are upgrading yourself and rescaling yourself with new technologies. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, that's great. I think Casey had one more question. Just a second. Can you give an example of good product engineering process or moving from building a backend based on UI designs and then engineering the front end or any other ideal strategy? Suraj?
Okay. Sorry, I I forgot to unmute myself. So the thing is that this question itself, the question of Casey is quite good. The previous question was also good, but it's quite time taking. But yeah, if you talk about examples, then I already told you, you can just visit the blogs of Swiggy, Hotstar, Uber. These all great companies have engineering blogs, and you can go through them and the research that how they tackled this problem. Even that Walmart has quite good engineering blog, where they totally describe about their application architecture and how they tackle such much load balancing and how they tackle the back end and front end as well. So it is not like I can give examples too much, but we don't have that much time, and it will take too much time to explain all this. So in comments, or actually, Casey, your questions are quite good. I appreciate you for this. So what I am planning to write a complete blog based on your questions only. Okay, thanks.
One more question Casey had, that he is thinking of using Firebase right now, but JSON is not exactly scalable due to its limited nesting. Is it a good solution to build a user profile style system with 10 to 20,000 user traffic on a JSON DB?
See, if there is some limitations with Firebase, I hope you are using Firebase storage for the good solution. Then sure, if although Firebase may have some limitation with free plans, or may have paid plans have these limitations as well. I totally agree with that. So if Firebase is not fulfilling your demands, then you can surely move to databases like MongoDB if you are planning to have JSON database only. And if your Firebase is fulfilling your demand, then be okay with Firebase. If you are talking about 10 to 20k users, yeah, Firebase is totally scalable, and it can easily handle 10 to 20k users. No doubt in that. Thanks.
Okay, that's great. And guys, we know that you guys are having so much questions and you want the answers also, but yeah, time is also limited, so we can't move forward with all the questions and we can't answer that appropriately and in detail as of now. So you may post your questions on Twitter by tagging us, by tagging GDG Jalandhar and by tagging Suraj. Also, you may connect with Suraj on LinkedIn or on other social media profiles so that he can answer your questions or by writing a blog or by explaining you only. Um, Before concluding this session, I would just like to thank you guys for your continuous uh, what I'll say, like interaction within the comments, and like joining us today on Saturday. So I hope that you guys enjoyed the session. You have learned something in this 1 hour, and you have something to take out from this session, and you will work on this. Work on UI UX thing. If you want
Yeah.
the slides, we'll post the link of the slide. I think Suraj, you will share on this on Twitter.
Yeah,
So
I will
just
share on every social media handler, no issue at all, and
okay.
even
So
in the description of this video as well.
okay, so the slides will be shared on the social media links, and you can see this YouTube. Like we'll broadcast this YouTube video too. Uh, Other than that, very thank you for joining us again, and stay safe.
And one more
We would
thing,
be
I have. Hello.
yes, Suraj, you can say.
Yeah, I'm audible. Yeah, the thing is that if you are facing any problems with your current product, or need consulting, or need suggestions on improving your products, then feel free to reach me on social media anywhere. I am okay with that. And for getting all the social media handlers, you can just visit my website surajkumar.info, and from where you can connect with me and any social media handlers, and we can have discussion and have solution for your problems as well.
Okay, that's great. So Ramesh, the Twitter link is at the rate Suraj Sugga. You can just visit surajkumar.info, and you'll find all the social media links there. So, okay, we'll be conducting our next webinar in next week, maybe on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. We'll keep you guys posted on our social media pages. So, till then, stay safe, keep learning, and keep posting your queries and questions on Twitter by tagging us, by tagging GDG Jalandhar or Suraj Sugga, so that we can answer your queries and you can enjoy the best out of this.
Yeah, and make sure
And
to be in home and stay at home only. And
yeah, and once
and I
again,
have,
I'd like to thank you, Suraj, for joining us, for giving an extraordinary session, and for informing us more about the blogs and the various things which the companies are doing, and which companies are acquiring. Thank you so much. Have a
yeah,
good day.
thanks.